Welcome back everyone to part 3 of this interaction tutorial series. In this tutorial we will be creating some uh, subclasses of the interactable base like a TV or whatever we will see. I don't know. But before I want to change one thing in here. I want to add a dynamic value for this text. I don't want it to always say interact because sometimes if I have a TV, for example, I want it to say turn on or turn off the TV based on the state of the TV. Okay, so I don't want it to always say interact. It's boring and very uh, not informative, to be honest. So let's first do it before we create another subclass. So first we need to go to our interaction interface, and we need to add two functions, a setter and getter for interaction text. Setter and getter functions. So let's add a virtual void set interaction text, and it takes one parameter, and that's f text new interaction text. And the getter, it's virtual f text get interaction text, and it's a constant. Now we need to copy both of them and go to our InteractablesBase header and paste them here to override. So override and override. Now we need to create a text variable. So u property edit anywhere category equal parameters. Okay, and f text interaction text. Let's give it a default value of f text from string, and let's say interact by default. And here, instead of override, let's return this. Okay, and this we override it in here. Now, to set and update the text of our widget, we need to have a reference in our InteractablesBase to our interaction widget component widget. So basically, to this widget here. And to do it, we need to create a variable. So u property, we need to create a variable of type u interaction widget. Yep. And we created u interaction widget reference or interaction widget. Okay. Now in the begin play, we want to set this interaction widget, or first if interaction widget component interaction widget is equal to, let's include the header for it, it's equal to cast u interaction widget, and the cast object is interaction widget component get widget. Okay, and now in here, if the interaction widget is valid. Interaction widget update interaction text, and the text is interaction text. Now we don't have this function. Let's go ahead into our widget class and create it in here inside the public void update text f text new interaction text. And in here include component text flow component interaction text set text new interaction text. That's it. Okay, so now inside the constructor or inside the begin place, sorry, we need to update our text. So we need to call set interaction text, and the text is get interaction text, the function. Great. Okay. So let's go and compile this. And in here, in our interactable, in the class that we are testing on, we search for parameters. And this parameter we created here. And let's give it a name, I don't know, test interact. Let's change the name just to see if it's working. And we crash for some reason. Let's try again. Okay, let's new or test interact. And it's working now. I have no idea why it crashed, to be honest, but it's working. As you can see, test interact. We can also change the interact text from the interactable blueprint class. For example, right now, if I drag and drop another interactable class in the world, the text will be interact because that's the default value for it in here. Okay, now if you want to change it so the default value is different, you can manipulate it from here because we have edit anywhere as a property. So we can edit it from the blueprint class defaults or from the instance that we drop in the world. If we did here edit default only, for example, we could only change it from inside the class and not from here. And for the edit instance only, we could change it from the instance in the world only and not from here. So edit anywhere allows us to do both. Okay, so right now, if we go here and search for parameters, and let's say um, hit dummy or whatever, and you can see here it changed, and in here it's still test interact because we changed it before, but now if we reset to value to property to default value, it will say hit dummy, and if we drag a new one, it's gonna say hit dummy. Okay, great. Now let's create a TV as an example. So let's, from the InteractablesBase C++ class, create a C++ class derived from it, and let's call it television. Okay, our television is created, and this is its parent class. Now we need to override the virtual void handle interaction. We need to override this function, override. Let's copy this and paste it here. We need to override this function. Okay. And for the television, we need to, whenever we interact with it, we need to turn it off or turn it on based on its current state. So let's go and create a boolean to keep track of its state. So is B turned on? It's false by default. Okay, and we need a function to switch TV state or switch state, and a boolean of parameter of type boolean B turn on. This will be responsible for turning on and off the TV. So now, first, when we interact, we need to disable the collision of this TV, so the player is not able to interact with it, so he doesn't spam the interact button. Okay, so to disable it, we need to get the interaction range. Let's include the header. And we need to set the set collision enable. No collision. Then we need to call switch state. Okay. Oh, it's a switch state. And parameter is this be turned on. And our parameter is called turned on, which keeps track if it's turned on. And the boolean it takes is be turned on, so we need to actually pass the opposite of turned on, not turned on. So the opposite. So if it is turned on, if it's true, this will be true, and it's gonna turn it on again. So that's why it won't work, because this parameter, this void, this function takes a parameter if we want to turn it on. So we don't want to turn it on if it's already on, so we take the opposite of turned on. Okay, and then after we turn it on, we need to re-enable collision after a little while, after maybe 1 second. So we need to start a timer. So get timer manager, set timer, and we need to create the timer here. So f timer handle, enable collision timer. enable collision timer, this at a television. Let's call the function re-enable collision. Or enable collision. Okay, and here void enable collision. And then simply, let's copy this. It's simply enable collision to be query only. And here we still need we need to pass the time as parameter after how many seconds. So maybe after 1 second. And if it repeats, we need to set it to false. It doesn't loop, just one time. Now let's go into the engine and go to Fab. If you don't have this button, go to plugins and look for Fab and enable this. Let's go there and let's import a good looking television. And let's set the price to free. This television looks nice. So let's add the project. Okay, now let's go here and create a blueprint based on television, and let's call it BPMs for television. And let's set the mesh to be this game ready television. And let's drop it into the word. Let's delete this dummy, we don't need it. Okay, it's very small, let's make it a little bigger. Maybe 2, like this. Yeah, it's better. And the sphere is very big also, let's make it maybe 100. Like so. Yeah, and let's change the position of this widget, maybe somewhere here in the middle. Okay, great. Great. Now, for the TV, by default, we want the interaction tags to be, or let's keep it interact for now. Let's go in here and override the virtual f text get interaction text. Let's override this. And we want it to return. So return be turned on. If it's turned on, we want it to return turn off because it's turned on. So we need to turn it off. But if it's not return, if it's not turned on, we need to return turn on. Okay. And now in the begin play here, this set interaction text will call this get interaction text, and for the television it's this one. So by default, when we start the game, it's going to be turn off. Turn on. Okay. So now if we compile, Sheng Tung Sung. Nice. I like Sheng Tung Sung. Okay, now if we start the game, interact. Cool. So the issue was in our base interaction, set interaction text function, we need to pass the parameter, not the actual interaction text. So just replace this, and it's gonna work now. Yeah, turn on. And if we press it, the collision will be disabled for 1 second, but the text is always turned on and the TV is not turning on. That's because we didn't yet play this function. So let's start. So first, be turned on. We need to change this to be equal to, so if turned on is now false by default, it's gonna take, when we turn it on, we need to set it to true. It's turned on. And if it's turned on already and we call this function, okay, it's gonna be off. It's gonna turn off because we are calling the opposite of this. So this is true, it becomes false, and vice versa. Okay, and let's set interaction text, get interaction text. Now when we turn it on, after the collision is enabled, it should say turn off. Yeah, turn off. Now turn on, turn off. Now we need to actually turn it on and off. So let's go and check our match here. So it has one material. Okay. Well, we need to add, so this television has one material for everything. So if you change this material, it will change for all the TV. So we can make a workaround and we can just add a plane that covers the screen, and we can later manipulate the plane material to turn it on and off. Okay, so let's go back to our television class and create a static mesh component. Let's call it television screen, and in the constructor, okay, and let's attach it to interactable mesh. Okay, now we also need to create a material instance dynamic so we can manipulate it. So let's go inside television header and create u material instance dynamic. Okay, and let's change the name to screen material. And inside the begin play, try to begin play. We need to get a view material interface. Interface. Let's call it base material is equal to television screen. Okay, and get material, and the material index is 0. Now, dynamic or screen material is equal to television screen create dynamic material instance, and the element index is 0 and base material. Okay, let's compile this. And the television screen, let's get the plane. Show the engine content. Plane. Okay. That's it. Like this. Now, if you have your custom television, of course, it will be easier because you will have another index for the screen, another material index. But in our case, we don't. Okay, let's maybe scale it a little bit from here. Oh, no, it's good. Yeah, it's good. So this, we will create a material for this one. So let's go here, materials, and create mem underscore television screen. Let's make it unlit, and let's have a texture sample. Let's convert it to parameter. Or no, not parameter. Texture sample. Let's multiply it by a scalar parameter. Let's call it emissive. Okay, and we need any texture here. Maybe this one, doesn't really matter. Okay, that's how it's going to look. And let's set this material. Okay, now our material has 0 emissive, so it's turned off. So let's go back in here, and in here, after we change the Boolean state, we need screen material set scalar parameter value, the one we just created, and create a float emissive is equal to emissive equals 0, emissive or be turned on, turn on is equal to be turn on. So if it's on, it's gonna be 1, and if it's 0, it's not an on, it's gonna be 0. Okay? Like so. Okay, let's compile. And let's try it. And as you can see, it's working. Great. So I guess that's it for this tutorial, guys. I'm not going to do another example in this tutorial, maybe in the next one. I hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment if you have any questions. And I will see you in the next one.